Having fought on the side of the Central Powers in World War I, Bulgaria ended up in a very difficult situation. Just like Hungary, it was allowed to have a small volunteer army with infantry and light artillery, nothing else. Almost 2 decades of stagnation followed, although the country would attempt secret rearmament before the 1938 Salonika Agreement finally lifted the severe limitations. Their efforts resulted in the creation of a small armored force, which I will detail in this video. Bulgaria started looking at the available options already in 1934 in complete secrecy. The following year, they purchased 14 Carro Veloce CV-33 tanks from Fiat Ansaldo. Armed with a single machine gun, these of course were not real tanks, so the army insisted that something more modern should be obtained with greater firepower. In September 1936, 8 Vickers Mark E Variant B with a single turret tanks were ordered from Great Britain, which is interesting given the fact that this alone violated their treaty obligations. The tanks were delivered by July 1938 in 2 batches, also in secret, without their weapons fitted, as the plan was to include a Maxim machine gun from domestic sources. Also in 1938, to ensure proper logistics, Bulgaria ordered 100 Opel trucks from Germany, along with 50 Pavesi tractors from Italy. This increased the number of available trucks to 338, which seemed to be enough for the moment to service the existing 22 tanks and tankets. Thus, 2 armored companies were formed, constituting all the modern formations of the Bulgarian army. It was obvious that this would not be enough in a future conflict, so Bulgarian officials continued to look for additional opportunities. Given that domestic industry, similar to Romania, was incapable of producing modern tanks, foreign purchases remained the only available option. In previous years, Czechoslovakia had been approached regarding the possible purchase of PA-2 armored cars, 3 different tanket models, the SI, SID, and Praga AH-4, and a new light tank, the Skoda LT-35, which later Nazi Germany also used in large numbers. At that point, though, the light tank was not cleared for export, so the Bulgarians, who considered the tankets less desirable, had to wait. When the rest of Czechoslovakia was occupied by the Wehrmacht in March 1939, the situation did not improve at first. Months of negotiations and firm, direct requests were needed before Hitler finally agreed to the sale of German armor to friendly countries. In August, the deal was finally closed. 26 tanks would be sold for 65,000 Reichsmarks each to be deployed along the Turkish border as a deterrent. By April 1940, these new tanks would form 3rd Company, and, together with the first 2 units, they now constituted Bulgaria's only armored battalion, headquartered at Sofia. Throughout early 1940, the Bulgarians continued to ask for more tanks, but the Germans were busy building their own panzer divisions, so they had none to spare. Instead, they offered 10 Skoda T11 tanks, which were based on the LT-35, but came with several fixes, a bigger engine, a German radio, and a more powerful gun. These had originally been ordered by Afghanistan, of all places, but they could not be delivered due to the war, so Bulgaria got them instead by February 1941. This was too late to send them to southern Dobruja when the region was annexed by Bulgaria in September 1940, so only 1st Company participated in the march and subsequent celebrations. In March 1941, seeing the Italian failure in Greece and the increasing influence of Germany, Bulgaria was pressured into joining the Tripartite Pact, after which German 12th Army entered the country to assist in the training of local forces. A month later, Yugoslavia was invaded, but Bulgarian units did not participate in the action. Instead, they negotiated for more tanks, then simply occupied the Greek coast and southern Yugoslavia with some delay. Germany agreed to deliver 40 French Renault R-35 light tanks, but these were in poor shape, so they were used as training vehicles. Nonetheless, the army now had 6 armor companies, so a full regiment could be formed. Subsequent trials showed that while the Škoda tanks performed well, the French ones broke down all the time, angering the troops. Bulgaria did not participate in Operation Barbarossa, but it was forced to declare war on the USA and Great Britain. The country desperately needed more tanks, so observers studied German unit organization and tactics, while the regiment was expanded into a tank brigade. This brigade included the tank regiment, with 2 companies of Škoda and 3 companies of unreliable Renault tanks, and a 6th company that had the old Vickers and Ansaldo tankets, but it lacked radios, armored cars, and many other elements, so it was not ready for combat. Therefore, Plan 43 was proposed by the army, placing the emphasis on the purchase of modern German tanks to replace the now obsolete models. Germany would not deliver the requested number of armored vehicles, 140 light and 72 medium tanks, and 54 Stug 3 assault guns, but they also wanted to keep the country in the Axis camp, so deliveries slowly started. Between February and December 1943, 55 Stug 3 assault guns and 56 Panzer IV Ausführung G and H arrived, along with 20 SDKFZ 222 and 223 light armored cars. After more negotiations, 4 Panzer I and 10 Panzer 38T arrived for combat and training purposes, since the Bulgarians refused to accept more outdated French tanks. A German request to send troops to the Eastern Front was declined by Tsar Boris III, after which he suffered a heart attack and died. Given that his son, Simeon II, was only 6 at the time, a regency council ruled in his stead, with a prime minister who was effectively a German puppet. They still had 1 full year before the Red Army reached the country's borders, but in September 1944 everything changed. Ironically, once a coup removed the government, the armored brigade that had been equipped and trained with German help was ready to fight against them. At that point, the brigade had 1 tank regiment, 1 motorized infantry regiment, 1 artillery regiment, a battalion of scout armored cars, an anti-tank battalion, a battalion of engineers, an anti-aircraft unit, a transport unit, and a repair/rearm unit with workshops. The older tanks could not be effectively used, the lack of spare parts remained an issue, but morale was high. At first, the protection of Sofia from a German attack was given priority, then the unit moved towards the old Serbian border to push the Germans back, and together with Bulgarian 1st, 2nd, and 4th armies, possibly prevent their retreat from Greece. While there were some notable successes, 11 tanks and 2 assault guns were lost in September alone due to mines, anti-tank guns, and artillery fire. The Bulgarians could not replace such losses. Each tank lost further reduced the overall strength of the armored brigade. Nonetheless, the push towards Niš continued in October. Heavy fighting ensued against the 7th SS Mountain Division Prince Eugen, resulting in the loss of more tanks. Only 88 of them remained operational, and there were practically no spare parts left for any of them. This number shrank to 82 in November, but the light tanks, especially the Škoda models, performed well in the mountainous terrain, and the brigade approached Pristina and Mitrovica in Kosovo. By early December, another 20 tanks were lost, but the campaign ended, so the brigade was sent home to be disbanded. However, First Army continued fighting in Hungary and in Austria, so in January, 1 tank battalion was reactivated. Only 22 Panzer IV tanks and 3 assault guns could be used, the rest were not fit for action. The older tanks and tankets were deactivated or became training vehicles, but the Red Army transferred a small number of various German tanks, tank destroyers, and assault guns as replacements. Even 2 Italian tank destroyers, 2 Hungarian Nimrod self-propelled guns, and 1 Turan were delivered, along with 4 Jagdpanzer 38T tank destroyers before the war's end. Some of these remained in service after the war, along with a handful of Panthers that also came from the Soviets, but more and more T-34 tanks were added to the list of the reformed 1st Brigade as Bulgaria became a Soviet satellite. These would gradually replace the obsolete models that were eventually deactivated in the 1950s.